Okay, so this is the part where when we open the door, you'll be hearing angel music because holy cow, we're in heaven. Check this out. I mean, Tim, this is crazy. I'm noticing a climate change as we move from room to room. I mentioned that's not an accident.
Yeah, so this kind of section of the warehouse is not temperature controlled. The reason being is we kind of want the barrels to swell and contract with the seasons. Kind of the swelling allows for the uptake of the beer into the wood, and then the contractions during the colder months allow kind of like that contraction and allows more of that liquid to come out and more flavor extraction.
So being in the heart of Chicago, a town that has 4 seasons, is good for the beer that you barrel age.
Definitely, yeah.
You couldn't get away with this if you had a facility in Phoenix.
Perhaps not, but it allows for more kind of variation among the seasons and variation among the vintages as well. More consistent temperature would mean more consistent beer in terms of that flavor extraction.
And there's just more things going on inside the barrel. I imagine that lends to more things going on inside my mouth. That sounded weird the way I said that. Let's keep going. So, can you tell us what's in here?
Yeah, so these look like they're all Bourbon County wheat wine. This is one of our first kind of like opportunities to stray away from the traditional Bourbon County stout recipe.
What is a wheat wine?
Wheat wine is a beer that uses a high proportion of wheat. It usually involves high gravity, so it has a lot of extra alcohol and residual sugar. This was my recipe as I kind of wanted to create a beer that really emphasized the barrel and the process of Bourbon County.
Can I stop you right there because I'm fascinated by the idea, Tim, of you're sitting looking at a blank sheet of paper, and then this happens. Like, is it like any other art? Do you get inspired different ways, or is it 9 o'clock? I got to come up with something. How does that work?
I think a lot of like the recipes that brewers create parallel a story or kind of, this was actually an opportunity to kind of prove the process. We took everything out of Bourbon County and just started with almost that blank piece of paper.
So you're saying like, I wonder what would happen if.
Yeah.
That's how this starts.
It was kind of like a case study. Take all the dark malts out, base 2-row and wheat, and let's see what shines through.
Does anyone say, well, that's crazy, you shouldn't do that? Or they tend to just go with whatever you suggest?
I think a lot of people are very welcoming to see kind of like a refreshing take on Bourbon County.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your job is you've got a world-renowned product, and your job is to somehow tinker with it and make it better.
Keep it fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, that's what people want. They want something, they know what they're getting when they go with Bourbon County, but they want something new for that year, right?
Yeah, but there's still something to be said about the original Bourbon County, just having like being able to taste the vertical, being able to taste like when Chicago was super cold that winter, or when we kind of transitioned into newer, fresher barrels. Each vintage tells its own story.
I still think it's crazy that two guys were having a dinner in the early 90s, and the idea was we're about to have our 1,000th batch, which was a big deal. What Goose Island started in 88?
Yep.
So it's like 4 or 5 years later, and then
this.
So you go from 6 barrels to this. It makes you wonder, like, what's this place gonna look like in 20 years?
Oh yeah.
I will say this too. You look like you've got room for more barrels.
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously. When did this facility open up?
We started. The first barrels arrived here in late 2014.
Okay, but I mean, it looks like it's built for growth.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right on. So 10/30/19, that's the date that was put in the barrel?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing with Bourbon County, it's come down to a formula where we actually blend the 2 poles. So we blend the youngest and the oldest.
Okay.
And that typically averages out to being about 10 months of age.
I see.
In the barrel.
Oh man, it just goes on and on. One of my favorite parts of the tour is where the girls from Petticoat Junction take their baths. What is going on here? This is massive. What is this?
Yeah, so these are called foeders,
Foeders.
or oak vats.
Okay.
Vats.
What were these used for before you guys got them?
Typically wine. I know these horizontals right here these were for Lillet, which is a French kind of fortified wine.
Okay.
And basically they're used by wineries for bulk aging, where you get kind of a residual amount of oak extraction, but the wineries usually get rid of them once they have a high proportion of winestone buildup or there's a contamination of Brettanomyces.
What do you guys use them for?
We use them for wild fermentation, so we actually look to have a degree of Brettanomyces in there, depending on the project, or kind of like bulk aging of beer to go through those secondary fermentations.
So the reason that the wineries got rid of this is the reason you want it.
Yep, exactly. It's best case scenario.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah.
So what would be in there now? Just
we've done golden ales. We've done a Flanders Red. We're doing a collaboration with Ron Pattinson to do a 18th century porter
wow.
that was heavily hopped, kind of a rendition of that historical style. We're doing a rye ale, and then we can also take that beer out and blend it with fruit too. We can blend it with barrels. It's a nice blending opportunity because you have a high volume of beer that is very versatile.
When you're blending with fruit, I mean, I imagine you're making pretty big purchases of fruit,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
do you tend to use real fruit, or you do concentrate, or does it
We do
depend
purees,
on purees?
typically.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to barrel aging in the barrels, we'll actually purchase whole fruit that's been crushed
Okay.
by McClure Farms in Michigan.
Okay.
And we like using the whole fruit because you also get the seeds. With cherries, you get the pits, and you could extract some nice like almond nutty characters. The fruit isn't pasteurized either, so it also provides a foundation of microbes to further acidify the beer.
That's great.
Yeah. All we do is we add another dose of microbes to steer the beer in a certain direction. Because if we didn't do that, we'd get a wild variety
Right.
of beer coming out of the barrel.
When you've got all of this going on, you've got this many barrels, you've got so many microbes, you've got different places that you get your barrels from. How do you make a beer consistently good?
Sanitation is absolutely key. Having very strict parameters on when you're sampling the barrel, using a lot of ethanol to spray everything that's touched beer. We use ozone as well to ozonate the barrels. If we're cleaning them, we're rinsing them. Again, sanitation is the biggest concern. We keep the barrel warehouse separate too. We keep the processing floor the same. It's easier to clean.
Right.
But for aging, we keep the two kind of barrel aging separate.
Yeah, it's very sterile in here. I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's what we want to hear.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
I didn't know we had a gym here. That's pretty cool. Punching bag, some tires.
Oh, right on.
Nice.
I get a shot at that golden ale. That's the one I'm looking forward to. Chicago, Illinois, home of the World Series. Start over.